Am I loud enough? Can you guys all hear me? All right. I'm Greg Garcia. I'm president-elect of Jefferson High School PTSA. So I'm officially in training this year, so I get to stumble, trip all over myself, and you guys just have to forgive me. But they give me 3 minutes for the floor. Michelle Bonnet is our president. She has a junior who came over from Grant. I have a sophomore who came over from Lincoln. Jefferson is clearly in a momentum and rebuilding phase, and we're seeing tremendous growth. We have 90 seniors this year, but we had almost 200 freshmen come in this fall. So you can see things. So you're clapping for Carol, of course, for pulling this off. Part of the growth was my son was invited to attend Jefferson as a dancer, and the co-oping program that allowed kids to attend one high school and visit Jeff went away. And to be quite honest with you, Carol knows I fought it vehemently and decided that we're going to join Jeff. Let's jump in with both feet. So I chose to get on board and become the president as well and get things going. Jefferson has a 105-year history. There's a Nobel Peace Prize winner that attended Jefferson High School. There's a 5-time All-Star that's in the Hall of Fame for football that attended Jefferson. This is an amazingly rich history and culture as a community. And our goal, if we haven't already started, is to rebuild Jefferson and put this community back together again. And I'm taking it on as a personal charter. We have a surrounding group of phenomenal PTA people from 7 feeder schools that all have the same passion about this. And most of you I can see are here tonight to in essence, I guess, if you want to say, kick that off. But we're serious about holding Jefferson as what it's capable of being, and that is a phenomenal community asset. And so the purpose of the meeting tonight is to have all you here. Let's talk about where we were, how we got to where we were, where we are now, and where we hope to go going forward. And the intent for now is to go through the agenda. We also have some handouts that we're going to locate somewhere. We've got a math opportunity coming up here later in the month of May. We'll have a handout about that. We have Richard Gilliam's presentation that was delivered. Where are you, Richard? That spoke about the Madison meeting that was held earlier this year. And that too gives us a little bit of a template from which to work off of. So what I'd like to do is step down, come back over to Jess, and let's get this thing rolling. So thank you. Appreciate you all being here.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. I'm going to kind of call the response culture. So good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Thank you very much. Welcome. I'm glad to see everyone here tonight. Some faces I know and some I don't. I'm Valerie Pierce, and I am Beach PTA President, Go Bobcats. And not only am I Beach PTA President, but I am also former Jefferson High School Rose Festival Princess. I remember the curfew, but you won't get me to do it because I can't go that low anymore. Okay, I'm not going to do that. And I won't tell you the year because when I went to Google to see what might be there, the first word that came up was historic. So I said, okay, that won't work. So, but welcome everyone. I'm just getting to give you the welcome and also to just share with you the goals for this evening that we've talked about. And I know we're going to say it, but I want to say this has been a really wonderful process. I'm working with these PTA leaders, and I've learned so much. And so I want to say that off the top, and glad that you're here. So, okay, tonight, our goals. Listening to learn from each other, and then surface past learning to validate previous community feedback. Also, we want to understand and identify the PPS goals and where PPS goals are for the district-wide boundary review. We want to, tonight, and I want to underscore the word begin. We know that we're not going to have all the solutions and the panacea for everything, but tonight we want to begin to develop a shared vision for the future of Jefferson Cluster Schools. Before I move on, is there anyone that is willing to take notes tonight? We do not have anybody designated. Was that again? I think? No? No. Is there anyone that would just be, you know, just
I'll
has
take notes,
volunteered?
Valerie.
Will?
Yes.
Sure. Thank you. So that's what we want to do tonight. And now I'm going to turn it into the hands of Jess and Rachel.
So I don't know if I formally introduced myself before. My name is Jess Thompson, and I am the PTA president of Chief Joseph Ackley Green. And this is Rachel.
Rachel Banks from Woodlawn, and also a proud Jefferson Demo alumni and Jefferson dancer.
Before we get started, we wanted to make a few acknowledgments to begin this conversation. And we shared this with John Isaacs and Richard Gilliam, and they agreed that these are acknowledgments that the PTA and PPS really want to identify and recognize that it's hard to have these conversations without acknowledging what we perceive to be the context in which our cluster is operating. So without further ado.
I'll add, it's really important to us as we want to move forward and talk about how to build a shared vision, to be proactive in working with Portland Public Schools to develop a vision for our cluster, to see the potential in all of our students at our various schools being realized and ultimately funneled into Jefferson. But it's also important for us to realize the work that's come before, and just to acknowledge some of the things that we heard from parents who were in a variety of different discussions around enrollment balancing or different PTA meetings or board meetings. So we want to make these acknowledgments to really honor what was heard, and then for us to be able to move forward, letting people know that they've been validated. So one of the acknowledgments that we, PPS and the PTAs want to make is that last year's enrollment balancing process was really hard, and it was traumatic for people, that there were some different feelings associated with that. We want to honor those, but once again, build off them, and we know that through coming together, that we can really build community and a positive vision. We also want to acknowledge that along with a variety of other things, enrollment policies and transfer policies have had an impact in gentrification in this community and other communities, which have also caused a variety of issues that we're dealing with today.
So as that PPS and PTA in Jefferson Cluster, we want to acknowledge that gentrification and the closure of Tubman, Humboldt, Kenton, Applegate, Whitaker, the Arts and Magnet School at Ackley Green, and the multiple reconstitutions and reorganizations of Jefferson have displaced large numbers of children of color. So that's the place in which we're sitting. So next, I'm going to turn it over to Valerie.
All right, well, this is the fun part where we get to kind of talk to each other and listen to each other. And I'm going to explain to you kind of what we had in mind for this. And if you have questions, just shoot them to me, and I'll try to give clarity where I can, okay? Because this is a listening, sharing evening where we kind of continue to frame our ask and have a cohesive, shared ask as a cluster, we are wanting to have us start with grouping. And we're not going to do anything like a huge group, but we're going to ask that if you will find 3 people for a group total of 3 that you don't know or that doesn't go to the same school as your child. And we're going to ask if you would take 10 minutes for everyone within that group to talk and to listen. And What we'd like for you to discuss is to share the successes, the challenges, and the hopes as they relate to enrollment boundaries and transfers at your school. And we ask that you actively listen. It'd be great if you would use I statements. Someone smiled at me, you know. It'd be great if you used I statements, and it would be also recommended if you would monitor your airtime. You know how you have that person in the group that does all the talking, and you hate to interrupt them, but we're going to help you out tonight by saying, please monitor your airtime. And so if you would do that and take that 10 minutes, and then what we want to do is we want to see how it works, but our idea is to have you do that again, and we will share out, but we want to get just as broad of information from this group as we can. How does that sound, everybody? Sound good? Any questions on that?
The people that are from PPS and/or that are not directly involved with this particular community, if you would please circulate in and join the meetings. We've got Carol Smith here. Carol Mortimer is the vice principal for the middle college here at Jefferson. We saw Richard Gillian. Please, all you people that are associated with PPS in some capacity, please circulate in and join these meetings, these groups. The goal is to give everybody a chance to be heard and discuss everything that's happened.
We want to take some time, if you feel called, to share out, to share what you learned from listening. And we're recording this because Jeff and Rachel are going to form this into asks. What we're asking. ASK. Someone looked like, really? But when you try to put the S on the end, it sounds, but we're trying to form these into an ask, several of them, okay? So as you share out, what's going to be really important is that you always have an ask. We know that we're going to get the challenges, and that's great, but we really are looking for what is the ask and what did you hear? What did you hear tonight, okay? So you just feel free to pop in, and I'll just bring this microphone to you if you like you need it. It's always that first moment, isn't it? But someone has to break the ice. Or was it just that good that there weren't any?
I'll go first. Get one out of the way. One of the comments that came up, and I think we're all grappling with this, is Jefferson's middle college. 12 credits, college credit, by the time you graduate. It therefore has, in essence, a specialty of sorts. Cleveland, IB. Lincoln, IB. Grant, AP. One of the parents asked, why? Why does every high school have sort of a specialty of sorts? How do you prevent enrollment transfers if every high school is different? And one parent feels IB is a curriculum that's more important for their kid than maybe AP or middle college. So I throw that out there, both to PPS and to you all as parents, and say, are you nodding at this, or should we just put walls up and say you moved into this community and you bought a house that's got an AP program and that's where you have to go to school? Would that work? Or the gentleman over here suggested it's a trade. Your kid is in a district that wants to go to IB, but that there's another kid over here that is in IB but wants to go to dance or middle college. Does anybody want to speak to this? Or
Greg, IB as in?
International Baccalaureate program. So if you plan on going to college outside of the United States, then an IB curriculum helps qualify you to apply to colleges outside of the U.S. I almost feel like I know what I'm talking about. Who's next? say the next one. One of the parents brought up, you know, there's a lot of history here. There's a lot of uncertainty here. There's these boundaries keep changing, and these schools are uncertain whether they're going to stay open or not. And what's the deal? I mean, we don't want to be making an investment in our children and our schools looking out the rear view mirror. We want to look out the windshield going forward, but quite honestly, there's some consternation here that there's a lot of uncertainty as to where that windshield direction is headed. And those were comments that were aired out. And I see some head nodding here, and I think that was part of our purpose tonight, was to get some of that out. Anybody want to join?
So I was going to say, just based off of what you just heard Greg say, are there any parents that want to just kind of weigh in on maybe what the ask is for that statement? You know, how would you form that into, yeah, please.
I would just love to see a long-term plan. I would just love to see a long-term plan, something that PPS is sharing with this cluster as to how to fix our issues. Not year to year, or we'll revisit that in 2 years. Something that makes sense, that we can all get behind together and make work. There's so much energy within each school, and just imagine the power if we could all get behind something that made sense. This cluster might really succeed.
One of the things that, and we talked about at one of the tables, was decisions that take too long can re-traumatize people over and over and over again. And then this, they've got a plan. We know they've got a plan. But one of the things that I think is important is, so there's some merit in that, sometimes, decisions being made quickly, but being able to hear the whole community. But I think the Portland Public Schools just as a whole, knowing who's in the buildings and how this will impact them is important in making those decisions. And then the communities inside the buildings, knowing who's in the building. And the example of that is at Woodlawn last year, the communication and behavior classrooms that represented students who have been moved over and over and over again. Finally found a home at Woodlawn. This might have been some of their sixth school. They've, getting sent from over the river to be in this classroom. They finally found a home, and these parents are told, you're going to get moved again. So, and one of the things that I heard was that there were people within Portland Public Schools that didn't know what a communication and behavior classroom was. So, these decisions have to be made knowing who the community is, and then, again, the community inside the building, knowing who's in your building is an important part of that, too. I don't know what the ask is.
Well, I actually was going to take the microphone over to a few people's comments that I heard that I think are pretty instructive. So, sorry, putting you on the spot. But no, I thought the comment you were making about concerning just the whole issue concerning neighborhood schools versus lottery was very instructive. You're mentioning that. Sorry, I didn't mention the slide here.
Which point?
Well, you were talking about the lottery system and neighborhood schools, and just had an interesting comment.
What I talked about is the perceptions for many parents that move into neighborhoods. We discussed the very difficult topic of gentrification, and then when parents are moving into Portland Public Schools, they need not concern themselves with their neighborhood school when they know they have access to a lottery. And for many parents, that can inform a decision to buy into a neighborhood or move into a neighborhood, and not necessarily have to commit to their neighborhood school. And a lot of that, in my opinion, is based off the perceptions and not the realities of the amazing work that I believe that we're doing in many of our neighborhood schools
I've lived in the area for over 50 years, and my daughter's a graduate of Jefferson, and I have tried to encourage all of my neighbors to send their kids to our neighborhood school, which is Vernon. What I find is a difficult thing to deal with is the perception that realtors give to prospective home buyers. They want to sell them a home in an area, but they also sell them against sending their children to the neighborhood school. So, I've thought about that, and I think maybe, we really need to have a campaign going that would bring realtors to Jefferson. Have them know what's going on here and the value and the successes that are happening here. Somehow we're not selling our successes well, and I think that's really important to do. When I first became involved at Vernon, there was no PTA, and nobody was interested in being a part of it. And so I was able to get someone who did an incentive grant, and they paid us for every parent we got to join PTA and to volunteer in the school. But we also invited prospective parents of prospective Vernon students to be a part of our PTA, even though their children were not in the school building. Because see, that's one of the flaws that I see, is that we allow people to opt out, and they're opting out of something they've never, ever looked into. So they don't know what's going on in a school, but they choose not to send their kids there. So I think that we have to figure out a way of how to get people interested in coming to learn about what's going on in Jefferson so that they can be a part. Because I think that it's a much better investment for a family to invest in strengthening their neighborhood school rather than opting out, because the facts are that children are not any more successful in those schools that they transfer to. And that's something that, I don't know how that secret has been kept. So it would be better when you're closer to home, you can be an active part of your neighborhood school. But when your child is in a school across town, and I've seen the maps that show where all the Jefferson kids go, but very few kids come to Jefferson, from other parts of the city. And so the other part of it is, I think maybe we might want to look at having partnerships between area businesses with our schools for them to have our kids do internships or have little jobs with them or whatever it is. So they too will then begin to see the value of the kids who come to Jefferson, and they'll be able to testify to that. Because I'm tired of reacting, I want to act.
I agree with you 110%, and I want to give a shout out to my real estate agent, who's Tracy Hicks, and she owns the real estate business in Vanport Square on MLK, and she is such a strong advocate for our North and Northeast Portland Public Schools, and she often, she hosts the last Thursday art walk stop, and she often opens up her business to host children's art from the neighborhood. So she worked a lot with King and all the schools, Humboldt when there was Humboldt and all. And I totally speak to that. We talked about that at our table, how we stop parents at the park and say, where are you going? Well, how old is your child? And where are you going to school? And, oh, really, have you looked at your school? So I think somehow having that initial perception when you are a new parent, the only way I knew how to look at a school was through the data that I find on the website. And that doesn't speak to a school at all. The test scores don't show us the heart and the community that is at that school. So finding another way to look at that besides, so that a parent's first view is the heart and soul of that school, not the test scores.
Thank you. Say what school you're from also, if you could.
I'm from Beach. My daughter's a first grader there. I want to say I agree with you and everything that's been said, but I really want to underline in terms of an ask, the need for stability. Even the thought of a boundary I don't know how to talk, redrawing or discussion filled me with dread tonight. And I know that it is hard to sell our North and Northeast schools to people that I talk to in the parks when they feel like, or they articulate to me this feeling that, well, I have no idea what it's going to look like in 3 years, let alone, 1 year. But really in 3 years or 4 years, I don't know. And when you all started the meeting by listing, by going through that list of schools that had closed, it is heart-wrenching. And so I think that my ask is that we have some kind of stability and some kind of transparency around these processes so that we can sell our schools in the way that they deserve to be sold.
So, yeah, can I talk about
Perhaps.
I'll talk
Pressure
loud.
capability.
I'll talk loud. I do think that when Portland Monthly puts out their magazine and they list all the test scores each year, it does hurt us all. I think people do, and I'm not hitting on Portland Monthly, but I do think it is hard that, the perception is, I don't want to send my child to that school. I also think, as I have brought up, that knowing that at 4 years old, you have to attend these lottery meetings and you have to, go to kindergarten roundup and you have to do all these things when your child is 4 years old creates an imbalance for those parents that don't know that don't know how to advocate for their child at 4 years old. And so what happens is that you have all these families, and I'm not dissing them or and I especially understand the want to do that, but I do think it creates this huge imbalance of parents that know how to do this in the system as opposed to the parents that just get there at 5 years old and they just go to their neighborhood school because they don't know anything else. And I don't know how to fix that. I don't know what the ask is, but I think it just needs to get looked at because I do think it creates inequities within our schools.
I wanted to speak to something that I heard and learned from Vernon that I didn't know about. I think I had blocked it out from last year. Because once I heard it, then I remembered it. But I heard from a parent at Vernon about the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders there. And they're currently in portables. And they don't have lockers. And there's a lot of parents that are leaving. There's a lot of momentum in Vernon, but a lot of parents leave because they want their kids to have a more traditional middle school experience. And it reminded me of Ackley Green. And I volunteered there last year when my son was a 5th grader at Chief Joseph, in part because I was a former middle school teacher and I don't really understand elementary school kids. And I remember being at Ackley last year, and there were some self-contained 6th grade classrooms at that time, and there weren't a lot of enrichments for our kids. And now this year at Ackley Green, Chief Joseph Ackley Green and the 4A campus, there my son is in 6th grade, and he's taken robotics and engineering, creative writing, dance, and a beautiful, beautiful dance studio that was built over the summertime, which is lovely. And the teacher is a former Jefferson dancer. And art, he's taken art from a great art teacher in a beautiful, beautiful art studio. And so I wonder what that feels like to the 8th graders that are there. And I'll try to talk about it without crying. I really wonder what that must feel like for them. And so I wonder, as a cluster, what we can do moving forward to ensure that that never happens to another group of students. So if you're at Vernon right now, and you're in portables in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, what can we do to change that? And what can we do to ensure that all of our kids are getting a really great offerings in the middle grades? And a lot of people say, well, it's dependent upon the principal. You need to have a principal that's a really good advocate. But the problem, and I remember saying this to somebody that I worked with a long time ago, I said, I just want to work for Barack Obama. And the woman said, there aren't that many Barack Obamas out there. And it speaks to a leadership issue. Like, there are, like, humans are humans, and so there aren't, like, we can't be dependent upon leaders to build these systems to protect our children. And when I say our children, I mean all of our children in PPS. So that is one of the asks, is that what can we do to ensure that those children in the Jefferson cluster in the middle grades, and I speak for future children, because my kid caught a moment in time, and I know how lucky he is. And he's having a great experience. But I know that had it been 2 years ago, it would have been a completely different story. So I would like to prevent that from happening for future kids.
I'm from Chief Joseph Buckley Green. Another thing I heard from King and Woodlawn and Beach parents, so stability and identifying strong feeder pattern would really help our middle grade program, when we all know that our kids are going to maybe not the same place but similar places, what they need to get to those places. So again, preventing the inequities in the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, but then also building programs that feed into the places that they are going to go, and having our children not say, no, it's cool, I'm going to go across town to high school. It's cool, don't worry. Just having the assumption for our kids that our children know I'm going to Jefferson or I'm going to Roosevelt. And the reason I'm going there is because the school I'm at now feeds all those programs line up with the programs and the great things happening at Jefferson and Roosevelt. And one of the reasons I can kind of clearly identify that is because I feel like that's happening at Chief Joseph Buckley Green. And I feel like it's happening with a lot of hard work, but also a lot of miracles. And I don't feel, like Jess said, I don't feel like it should take miracles for that to happen. That this should just be a given for our 6th, 7th, 8th neighborhood children and the children and the families that have been here for a long time and who, and who are staying.
And if I can just echo that, tables that I sat at as well, and I know we're having the conversation as a parent community and PTA community at Beach regarding middle school. It's really an important conversation, and want to see the conversation continue. The ask is that the conversation continues about what's working and how do we get that. Because it is working. We hear that it's working. And so how do we get that? And instead of saying, have the conversation, I know the conversation is happening, but really continue that conversation, because having a robust and very real middle school program for our kids is extremely important. And you want all of our kids to feel like they're important, whether they're immersion, whether they're neighborhood, whether they're, and we want our middle school kids, we want them to feel like that it's important enough that we're doing the work. And so I just wanted to echo that as we had those conversations. And to know that that's happening, and to know what's being said, that this is working, that what we're doing right now is working. We only have a couple of more minutes. Thank you, Richard. We only have a couple more. Is there anyone that would like to give one final thought before we move on?
Anybody else?
Greg.
I haven't asked. I have a son who's a sophomore, 2 years to through 8 school. If it means every K through 8 school send an update through PTA to Richard, and Richard sends it back out, or the high school sends out to the K through 8 schools, what's going on. You got back-to-back 5A basketball champions here. We've got national award-winning monologue speakers. Got a great dance program. We've got a middle college that guarantees 12 college credits. We've got a wonderful amount of qualities about this community that we can offer. We need a marketing campaign. We have to continuously agitate this community that Jefferson's coming back, and that's my ask.
All right.
Anybody?
Okay, and we're going to, is this thing, don't worry about it, I can talk loud. We're going to, is John, Gabrielle? Yeah, they're going to come, and we have ran really close to time, so it's really tight, but please, they're going to talk about the district-wide boundary view, and is this answer questions? We have that here, is that, yeah? We're going to answer questions about the boundary review process. And second, Gabriel, I guess you're Gabrielle.
So you know, so you don't feel like this is your only opportunity
Right.
to interact with PPS about these issues. John has spoken with, or Richard has spoken with the PTAs. He's the one that got this started. Thank you, Richard.
Yes.
And this, our hope is that these community wide listening sessions continue next year. So we're hoping for 4 more opportunities to come together as a cluster and to listen to each other and start to build a shared vision, which is something that Rachel has really, you know, and Woodlawn, they've really been doing the work. And so a lot of what we've done today has been modeled off of Woodlawn coming together to create a shared vision. So we want to continue to do that. So if you think this is the only time and you're feeling like pressure, like we have to know all these answers, if you've been through this before, you know this is ongoing dialogue. This is a marathon, not a race. So this doesn't work.
But you can hold it.
Yeah.
We don't have a PA person, huh?
We'll project our
Let me
voice.
just do a little context and then I'll turn it over to you. So thank you. So hi everyone, my name is John Isaac. I'm the Chief of Communications and Public Affairs for Portland Public Schools, and I'm just going to do a little background and then I'm going to turn it over to Gabrielle to talk about the work that the Superintendent's Committee for Enrollment and Transfer has been doing. From now I'm going to call it SACIT. That's what we call it, long name. So the background is that, as you all, everyone in this room is well aware, following the Jefferson enrollment balancing process last year, the board adopted a resolution that directed the staff at PPS to do a number of things, which are actually, some of those things are visible in this room tonight, and there's 3 in particular that I want to talk about. So based on the feedback from the community in that process, the board directed the staff to undergo a review of enrollment and transfer policies with SACIT, and so immediately following that, we reconvened SACIT. That is, actually, I want to introduce Jason Tremblay right here, who is the co-chair of SACIT. Thank you, Jason. And Gabrielle, actually, there's a bunch of SACIT members here. Can you guys raise your hands who are here? So Scott Daly, Rita Moore, Talitha Benjamin, and Gabrielle Bolivar are all SACIT members who are here. And the superintendent gave them a charge of reviewing the enrollment and transfer policies and working to put them in alignment with the district's racial educational equity policy in response to that direction from the board's resolution. So that's one piece of work that's been going on. The other piece was based on feedback from the community of not just doing looking at boundaries just within this cluster, but doing it district-wide. So they directed us to look at and investigate doing a district-wide boundary review process, which I'm going to talk about after Gabrielle. And then the third piece was to work with parents to do exactly what you were talking about, Greg, but work on helping you promote the schools within your cluster to build enrollments, and that led to us bringing Richard on as the first Jefferson Community Cluster Coordinator. So that's what Richard is hired to do, and I know he's been working with you on building relationships and helping pull this meeting together. So that's work that will hopefully build upon itself. And I just want to say on the marketing thing, we had a retreat on Friday as a communications team, and Richard got that exact thing on the agenda for communications for next year as a marketing campaign. This year we produced really nice marketing materials, but we want to take that to a next step next year. So I just wanted to let you know Richard was in there fighting for that. Okay, so we just want to give you an update on these things real quick and answer questions. So first I'm going to have Gabriella, do you want to come up and give an update on SAC, and then I'll talk about Banner. Okay.
So, my name is Gabrielle Mercedes Bolivar, and I'm one of the SACIT members and have been on the SACIT for the last year and a half. As John said, the charter that we have with the SACIT right now is to apply the racial educational equity policy and align that to the current policies and practices with the enrollment and transfer as it stands now. The SACIT as a body has actually been meeting for about 5 years, and so I'm one of the newer members on this committee, and I can say that we've dedicated almost every Tuesday night, every month, for almost a year and a half, and we have a broad representation across the district from all clusters, from charter schools, immersion schools, community side, neighborhood schools. So it's really a great representation of the demographics of Portland Public Schools. Right now, we are preparing to present on March 27th to Superintendent Carol Smith where we're at in terms of those recommendations. On June 2nd, the SACIT will be presenting an update to the Portland Public School Board of Directors. And from that, Carol Smith and her team will be using those recommendations to inform the next steps in the process. There will be a time where we will further do some more community engagement. We've been involved in doing some isolated community engagement meetings that have been very intentional. And then from there, eventually that will lead to some policy and procedure changes around enrollment and transfer.
Does anyone have, why don't we do questions about that before we go to boundaries? Does anyone have any questions about enrollment and transfer policy?
Can I just, so I'm Judy Brennan, I also staff SACIT, and some of you might remember me as that woman at all the enrollment balancing meetings. Nice to see you all again. I just wanted to say that if you were to sit in a SACIT meeting, the kind of rich dialogue that you're having, the dilemmas that you're raising, the challenges that you're discussing here, the goals that you're hoping for are the very kinds of things that SACIT members like Gabrielle and the others here bring to that table and try and put together in a way that it will come forward with the changes that make a long-term difference for you. So you have an amazing group of community members who will dedicate their time to some of these tough challenges. But in case you thought they were talking about things that were somehow distant or removed from your own experiences, they listen to you, they take what you say to heart, and they listen to the experiences of their own communities, and they're really, really devoted to bringing about a different system of enrollment and transfer that's more equitable for this district. So we are pleased to have them on board, and I hope that you take heart in that. All of their document materials are online. If you'd like to take a look at the minutes and of course the report that's coming out.
Thank you, Judy. I just wanted to take a moment to recognize a couple of our PBS board members who are here. So board member Ruth Adkins is right here. She's also the liaison to the SACIT committee. So she attends SACIT meetings, doesn't participate, but listens in. And then we also have Director Steve Buell here as well. So we didn't get a chance to do that earlier. So I know we're 8 o'clock, so I'll do this as quickly as I can to give you the full information. So one of the other directives we got from Superintendent Smith with both the SACIT process and boundary review was that the important thing is to get them right and not set false deadlines for ourselves, and she felt that was a learning from the enrollment, the Jefferson enrollment balancing process last year, was that when you're driven by a deadline that you put out there, you don't take the time perhaps to pause or get it right. So if it sounds like we've been doing this deliberately, here we are a year later, that's because we have been. It's been more about let's do this the right way rather than doing it super fast. But you also heard that SACIT is they're about to present their first set of recommendations to the superintendent, so that's in there. With boundary review, what we decided to do was take a hard look at ourselves and accept that you know, we don't always do the best job of doing boundary review. It's really hard, and, you know, maybe we need some help from someone to do this. So, and also when you think of district-wide boundary review, you know, that sort of amplifies the need for maybe having some help. This is a very tough thing. You're going to involve the whole city. So what we decided to do was ask for some help from the Portland State University Center for Public Service, who has a team there dedicated to helping public agencies solve what they call wicked problems. There they have Oregon Solutions, and they also have the National Policy Consensus Center. So it's a group of experts who come in and say, hey, we'll help you figure out something that's really tough. So what they have been doing for the last 5 months is an assessment of what we need to prepare for in order to engage in a successful district-wide boundary review process. And on June 3rd, the same night that the SACIT will be presenting to the school board, the PSU team will also be presenting their assessment of what we need to prepare for in order to do district-wide boundary review. That's to say that if you are interested in these two topics, and we know from this discussion there's a lot of interest here, really encourage you to attend that board meeting, because you'll be getting their full assessment. That involved interviews with about 30 community stakeholders, community and internal stakeholders, where they're going to lay out, hey, here are the challenges you have, PPS. They're going to lay out the case about why we need to do it. For example, they're going to point out in their report that well over half of our schools are either over-enrolled or under-enrolled. They're also going to point out that we're projected now to have enrollment growth for as far as our projections go as a district, which is a complete change from where we were 5 years ago. And they're going to talk about, hey, here's some recommended ways you could actually go about doing district-wide boundary review and have the highest chance for success. So we're still waiting for the final assessment from them, and it's going to be presented publicly to the board at that June 2nd board meeting as well. So that is to say there is nothing imminent. We are now about to launch a boundary review process anytime in the very near future. I know people have been wondering about that, but we have been going at a deliberate pace in order to get these recommendations from experts on how you would go about doing something this difficult. The report will be public before the board meeting, before the end of this month, and we'll post it online. Happy to send it to you guys so you can email it to everybody here, and you can read the PSU team's assessment. Okay, yes?
One other thing I'd like to say is that I know for me accessibility depends on childcare, so thank you for providing childcare tonight. If you are not able to attend the meetings, the school board meetings, they are streamed online. And if you don't have internet access at home, or you know others that would like to see it, you can also watch it on channel 28. So just want to make sure that everyone knows the different avenues in which you can still watch the live board meetings.
Does anyone have any questions? I just wanted to give an opportunity to answer any questions. Okay, thank you very much. Very good, Jessica.
So calendars, June 3rd, Jeff Cluster will represent, or 2nd, sorry, we will represent. We're going to do just a quick few asks with the understanding that these are open-ended asks of PPS, and they are from conversation. They were learnings that we surfaced from last year's enrollment balancing and from the discussions today. So knowing that this is ongoing, these are our asks of PPS. I also want to acknowledge, just as somebody has participated last year and heard at almost every meeting that I went to, that we were not growing. It's really nice, and that we were going to have to close schools. We heard that over and over and over again. So when we talk about trauma that is done to community, that's really real based. So I just want to thank you for getting outside information about our population growing in the city, and that some of our asks are going to be tied to that. So, all right. Okay, so our first ask is, we've heard our families say that they want to keep Jefferson open.
And I would add to that and feed kids into Jefferson intentionally through marketing and other strategies.
We've heard our families say they want strong leaders at every school who have the tools to close the racial discipline and achievement gap and communicate effectively with staff and families.
We heard our families say they want a comprehensive, rigorous, equitable middle school offerings across the cluster and district.
We've heard our families say that they want to have a transparent and open process, and they want to know how the key learnings are based off of input that's been given before.
We've heard our families say that they want to have honest, transparent, healthy communications with PPS moving forward.
I just want to say thank you for coming out. I'm Richard Gilliam. I'm the outreach cluster, the Jefferson Cluster Outreach Coordinator. But I want to give special thanks to the PTA presidents here for taking the initiative to bring the community together for this listening session. Jessica, Valerie, Rachel, you guys did a great job. Greg, obviously, did a very, very good job. Jefferson High School, hosting this event, very important. Oftentimes we have situations in our community that kind of appeals to our fears. But this is a night that kind of appealed to our hopes and our dreams. And there's a lot of stuff going on in our cluster, very positive. On the upswing article that, if you noticed just in this current edition of the Scanner concerning Jefferson High School, the increase in graduation rate, some of the programs around the cluster. So the marketing campaign has started. And, and we can only enhance it ourselves. We have to talk to our neighbors about our schools, our respective schools in the cluster. So I just wanted to give special thanks to the initiative that you showed in terms of getting folks out. And I'd like to, if I could, have the superintendent speak to you, Superintendent Carol Smith.
And really, I just want to add my thanks for the forward-looking leadership and just being part of this conversation tonight and the candid conversations at the tables. I really appreciated listening. And that we do have really good forward momentum happening right now. Jefferson High School has had increasing enrollment each year since we started the middle college. We've got an increasing graduation rate that is being really now talked about and just forward momentum. And I hear that happening in all of the schools, just the hope of how do we get every student who lives in the Jefferson cluster to decide they want to attend school in the Jefferson cluster. And I feel that as a pretty universal desire here in this room, and just thank you all for being part of this. But thank you for your leadership in calling together such a productive conversation. So glad to have been here.
Go home to your children.